Okay, we're going to discuss about the coagulation factors. Okay, so coagulation factors actually belongs to your secondary hemostasis. So coagulation factors, once activated, is much able to form here a much stable na clot compared with the platelet plug or even with the help of your blood vessels. Although in the usual na tissue injury, both the primary and secondary hemostasis are being activated simultaneously in order for you to stop the bleeding process. Okay, coagulation factors, they're also called here as your procoagulants. Procoagulant because they are stimulated primarily to induce or to stimulate the clotting process. Coagulation, procoagulant. Okay, so there are 16 coagulation factors and they're given a Roman numeral classification number. So majority of them, almost all of them are being produced by our liver except your von Willebrand factor or the factor 8 von Willebrand factor complex. Especially this part, the von Willebrand factor. So the von Willebrand factor is primarily produced here by our megakaryocyte, monocytes. Okay, so therefore it's not really exclusively being produced here or synthesized by our liver. But with all the rest of your coagulation factors, again, they are being produced by our liver. Okay, so we have here much of your coagulation factors here are being produced in the inactive form, and you call that one as the zymogen. Okay, so here are the different coagulation factors with the Roman numeral classification number and the other names. So the first one, we have here your factor 1 is your fibrinogen. So this is considered to be as an ultimate substrate for the clotting process because you end up with the conversion of your fibrinogen to your fibrin clot. Okay, and therefore, yun ang pinaka-ating end ng ating activation ng coagulation factors. Therefore, we consider your fibrinogen here as the ultimate substrate for the clotting process. Okay, coagulation factor number 2 is your prothrombin. Coagulation number 3 is your tissue factor. It's a combination of your tissue factor plus your phospholipid. Or other name for that is your tissue thromboplastin. Factor 4 is your calcium, your ions. Ito lang this is also different here from all the other na coagulation factors natin basically because this is not classified as either serine protease or by cofactors. So because this one is an ion, calcium is needed for the coagulation process. Factor 5 is your proaxelerin or your labile factor. Factor 6, wala nakalagay na factor 6 because again, the factor 6 is just the activated na factor 5 and therefore parang siyang factor 5 lang din actually. And therefore, hindi siya na-replace. Until now, scientists would not able to replace that one with a new na coagulation factor designation. Factor 7 is your proconvertin or your stable na factor. Factor 8 is your anti-hemophilic factor A, your von Willebrand factor. Okay, and then your factor 9 is anti-hemophilic factor B, your Christmas factor, your PTC, plasma tromboplastin component. Factor 10 is your Stewart-Power factor. Factor 11 is your PTC, your plasma tromboplastin component. Anti-hemophilic factor C, your Rosenthal factor. Factor 12 is your H-Man contact glass factor. So basically, they're involved in the contact upon contact with your negatively charged na particles. And factor 13 is your fibrin stabilizing factor, your Lacky-Lauren factor. So we have your other miscellaneous, your prekallikrein, other name for that's your Flesser factor. Then we have also high molecular weight kininogen, other name for that is your Fitzgerald Flojak factor or even your Williams factor. Then we have also here your platelet factor 3. This is a type of phospholipid in the form of your phosphatidylserine. And it's being used here primarily as an assembly molecule to facilitate here the activation of your entire coagulation factors. Okay, then we have also here classification of our coagulation factors. We could also divide the coagulation factors according to their functions. So we classify that one as your serine protease. Serine protease is your proteolytic enzyme. So basically, they tend to hydrolyze or try to cleave, kinakat, okay, your coagulation factors to a smaller fragments. So another one classification, they could also be classified as our cofactors. So the cofactors tend to bind, stabilize their cofactors, their coenzymes, or their corresponding or respective na enzyme. They tend to stabilize that one, making them here as our cofactors. So the following coagulation factors are classified as our serine protease. We have here factor 2, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, and your pre-kallikrein. On the other hand, we have also here your coagulation factors classified here as our cofactors. So your cofactors, we have that ang serine protease natin, wala siyang cofactor. I mean, your factor 2, wala siyang cofactor. Factor 7 is cofactor here, factor 3. Okay, factor 9, ang kanyang cofactor is your factor 8. Your factor 10, ang cofactor niya is factor 5. Factor 11, wala siyang cofactor. Factor 12 is your high molecular weight kininogen. And even your pre-kallikrein, ang kanyang cofactor is also your high molecular weight kininogen. So these are considered here to be as our cofactors. Factor 3, factor 5, factor 8, and we have also your high molecular weight kininogen. Okay, other classifications. So ito yung mga ating mga other coagulation factors na they do not belong to either of your serine protease or even your cofactors. The first one, we have your fibrinogen. Fibrinogen, again, this is considered here as the ultimate substrate of our coagulation. So, again, you end up with the activation coagulation factors by converting your fibrinogen to your fibrin clot. Considering here your fibrinogen as our ultimate na substrate. Then we have also here your factor 13. Factor 13, hindi din siya belongs to either of your serine protease or even your cofactor. Okay, your factor 13, ang pinaka-function nito is transglutamase or transamidase. Amidase. Okay, which helps primarily to stabilize your fibrin clot. Kaya nga tinawag ang factor 13 natin na fibrin stabilizing factor because basically try to stabilize your fibrin clot. Another one, your platelet factor 3 also would have here a different function serving here as our assembly molecule that would help here to activate or serving here as our assembly molecule in order for you na mag-activate ang entire coagulation complex. Or you call this one your tinase complex. Your platelet factor 3 is actually your phosphatidylserine, which is a type of your phospholipid. Okay, then we have also here the other classification of your coagulation factors according to their group. So first one, we have your fibrinogen group. Fibrinogen group includes the following coagulation factor, factor 1, 5, 8, 13. Okay, so they are vitamin K independent and calcium dependent. I mean to say, pag vitamin K independent, they do not require potassium, they do not require vitamin K in order for them to be activated. Calcium dependent, so mean to say, kailangan pa din nila ng calcium in order for them to become activated. Okay, other name of your fibrinogen group here is the consumable group. Bakit sila consumable? Because eventually they tend to be consumed during clotting process. Pag sinabing consume during clotting process, nawawala sila or they tend to deteriorate upon clotting process. So like here, absent the fresh na serum because pag nag-produce tayo ng serum, di ba, kailangan mag-clot ng blood natin. So pag nag-clot ang blood, so since na-consume sila during the clotting process, which result here to the production of your serum, so therefore, na-expect natin ang serum natin ay walang 1, 5, 8, 13 na coagulation factors. Okay, then we have here your prothrombin group, also called here as your adsorbable group. So this includes here your factor 2, 7, 9, 10, your protein S, your protein C, protein Z. Okay, so we'll discuss it later on itong mga protein C, S, and Z. Z natin, mga regulatory control protein sila. Okay, so your prothrombin group, also called here as your vitamin K dependent. So, mean to say they require vitamin K for them to be activated. And they're also calcium dependent, so it requires calcium for them to become activated. So, they are adsorbable groups. So, mean to say they are adsorbed by our adsorbing agents. Adsorbing agent here includes your aluminum hydroxide and barium sulfate. So, pag sinabing adsorbable group, they are adsorbed. Pag inadsorb, natatanggal sila pag nag-add ka nito. And therefore, pag after addition of this one, ang ating plasma, adsorbed plasma na tinatawag, since na-adsorb sila natanggal, ang adsorbed plasma na naiwan. Okay, adsorbed plasma, they are adsorbed. Adsorbed na plasma, expect na wala ka na makikita na mga factor 2, 7, 9, 10, protein S, protein C, and protein Z in your adsorbed na plasma. Because na-adsorb na sila, natanggal na sila because of this addition of your aluminum hydroxide and barium sulfate. So that's why absent in adsorbed plasma. Ito naman, hindi natin makikita sa fresh na serum. Ang mga ito ay hindi din natin makikita sa ating adsorbed na plasma. In the third classification of our coagulation factors, we have here the contact group. The contact group is basically they are involved in the contact. Okay, they tend to be activated upon contact with your negatively charged na particles. Example of your contact group, we have factor 12, your prekallikrein, and we have also here your high molecular weight kininogen. And we classify this one as both calcium independent, so hindi sila nangailangan ng calcium for them to be activated. So just need to be upon contact with your negatively charged particles. Another one, they're also vitamin K independent, so they do not require vitamin K in order for them to become activated.